Good afternoon. Welcome to the Circle of Mercy. I am Stan Wilson, the new co-pastor. I'm sorry. That's the new co-pastor. Yeah, you can applaud him, yes. We're going to have a special celebration for him a little later in the service, but as is our custom, we eat. There they are. We light candles in remembrance of Wabi Dobbs, who's in prison right now, our friends in Cuba, all who have experienced violence in all its forms, all whose lives have been impacted by COVID, our friends at Harbor Faith Community in Ireland, and for all who have not been with us tonight, and for each one of you. We now will have a brief moment of silence.
Please join me in the call to worship found on the front of the bulletin. Stand in if you feel like it. O loving and mysterious Creator, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You understand my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O holy and amazing one, you know it completely. Your love surrounds me, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's so high that I can't reach it. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in your mystery, intricately woven by your tender hands. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. Your eyes could see my whole life taking shape before it even started. How deep are your thoughts, O mysterious and loving God? How vast is the sum of them? They are beyond me. I try to count them. They are more than the sand. And no matter what, I am still with you.
When I closed my eyes so I would not see, my God did trouble me. When I let things stand that should not be, my God did trouble me. When I held my head too high to ground, my God did trouble me. When I raised my voice too little too loud, my God did trouble me. Did trouble me. With the word or sign, with the ringing of a bell in the back of my mind, did trouble me, did stir my soul, for to make me new, to make me whole. When I slept too long and slept too deep, my God did trouble me, put a worrisome vision into my sleep, my God did trouble me.
Your eyes could see my whole life taking shape before it even started. I like that because God looks at you with love and excitement and with imagination. Do you have any idea what you might be doing in about 5 years? It's all kinds of things are possible. And you'll be in ninth grade. That's exactly right. You're good, very good. So you might be able to step into some love in ninth grade that you might not even imagine right now. Because when God watches us, God knew us before we even were born, and has been cheering us on to step into more and more love each time. So, what's this?
Acorn.
Yeah. When you look at these, take one. When you look at these, what do you see? Do you want here? We'll choose some. Choose one. Do you want to look at some others? Would you like it? Let us all pick one. You haven't picked one yet. Let us all pick one. You haven't picked one yet. Yeah. What do you see when you look at this? Well, I'll tell you what. You can choose one right now. What do you see when you look at this? Plain old acorn. Exactly right. It's got a little hat. Right? What do you think God sees when God looks at this acorn?
A big chicken.
A tree. Does it automatically become a big tree? How does it start?
A seed.
A seed, and then it gets roots, and then it starts to grow up with a little a trunk and then some branches. There's a saying that says, "In this acorn is a forest." Is that true?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Yeah, because you just have one acorn and then you can start a tree. And how many acorns does one oak tree give?
A lot.
It might, but there might be others from that same tree. So when God looks at us, the way we look at this acorn and see all kinds of possibilities. What can you do in an oak tree? Climb it. What else can you do?
Eat the acorns.
Eat the acorns. Can you hang anything from it when it's big?
Actually,
A tire swing. That's exactly right. Stan was telling me about that. I didn't have one, but I always wanted one. Who plays in oak trees besides people? What were you going to say, Lucy?
My cousins have a rope swing on their tree.
Yes, you have a rope swing or tire swing or both. What kind of animals play in the oak tree?
Rope swing, actually.
That's good. What kind of animals play?
Those cranberry brain squirrels.
What else plays in the oak tree?
Birds.
Birds, and they build
Nests.
nests, so they make their home in an oak tree.
Owls, they'll eat mice.
They might. Yeah, it's all in this one little acorn, all of those things. It also, in the summertime, it gives shade. And what happens in the fall to the leaves?
They drop.
But before they drop,
They turn color.
they turn colors. All of that in this little acorn. That's the way God looks at you. To think of all the possibilities of love that you can receive and you can share. And you know what? Our world needs every drop of love that you have to share. Just like the world needs every leaf from this acorn that's going to make a big a big oak tree. All right, so you may put your acorn just on the ground for right now. And no, you're going to take it with you. You can take it with you. I just want you to be able to have your hands free. So you can squat, because we're going to do, and then we're going to kind of stand up to do our prayer. We're going to grow up like an acorn. We're start down low. We're going to grow up like an acorn tree. Like an acorn tree, an oak tree. All right. So repeat after me. Dear God, thank you for watching us grow. Thank you for loving us as we grow. Help us have the kind of imagination that Jesus did. Sing an oak tree in a little acorn. Amen. The end. Oh, yeah. Baroque violin. And also, we've shared about the firefighters who died in the explosion. On the day they had the official day of remembrance and mourning for them, over the Matanzas Bay, there was this huge, full, double rainbow over the bay. And it was stunning even in pictures. And there was a quote that said, "This is how Matanzas says goodbye to her sons." And it was just beautiful. And then the last moment I'll share is I saw some photos, our home church in Matanzas, the First Baptist Church that some of you visited. They got to go to the beach. August is usually the vacation month for pretty much everybody. A lot of things are shut down, but not many people have been able to have vacation. But Wanda wrote, she said, "Well, we had a full day of vacation for the whole church." And there were kids and young people and grown-ups, and their faces were just alight with joy and family, and it was just lovely to see. So I'm grateful to share those with you, and it lifts my heart. And so now I'm inviting for any concerns you'd like to voice out loud, but remember that God already is carrying whatever you feel in your heart at this moment. For holding all these concerns. Was I missing? And thank you for holding them as God holds us all. I'm adapting a prayer of Padre Otuma. The original prayer was in times of change, and I'm thinking about this as in terms of today's a very special Sunday, being the beginning of our new co-pastor, and what a gratitude for the search team and for all involved and for our church. So it goes like this. God of beginnings, help us see life now through the stories and possibilities of today. Be with us here at the beginning. Help us place our feet on this ground. Help us look up and look around. I invite you now to do that. Look up and look around. Look up and look around. Help us believe the story of today and imagine new possibilities. Remind us that you know all about the beginnings of today, and you are unafraid. Through Jesus who lived, always offering new beginnings. Amen.
For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost, to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, "This fellow began to build and was not able to finish." Or what king, going out to wage war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions.
If you want to be my disciple, you have to hate your father and your mother, even your own wife. Dang, Jesus. That's one of the top 10 things we're not supposed to do. Are you really sure about this? I have to admit that this text does make me bristle a little bit every single time that I read it. It makes me bristle because it just feels so harsh. Thought about how we have offered words of blessing over the last few Sundays for several of our members who are going on journeys of different sorts, studying abroad, beginning school in a new place, moving to another state. So much of their lives up to this point has prepared them to take these next steps that they're taking. But what if, as part of those blessings, we said something like, be ready. You can't go on this journey unless you first hate your father and your mother, your sisters and your brothers, even life itself. If we included such words, would anyone even want to ask for or be willing to stand in this space for a blessing? What if I started teaching the kids and youth, you gotta hate your parents? Some might not have too much trouble. But the more I thought about it, the more it helped me understand the depth and nuance of this passage. By the time we get to this part of Luke's gospel, Jesus has already begun his journey toward Jerusalem. He was being followed by large crowds of people, and things were getting kind of serious. He had already called Herod a fox publicly. He was moving toward a series of events that would require so much not only of him, but of those who followed him. It was dangerous and risky. He wanted to make sure that they were ready to go with him. Were they really ready to be his disciples? I wonder if Jesus was actually doing a little bit of his own inner work of focusing his mind, body, and spirit, preparing himself for what was ahead. And some of that just spilled out on other people. Jesus had been raised and cared for by Mary and Joseph. Before he was even born, Mary's Magnificat painted a picture of the kind of upheaval and turning the world upside down that might be possible if the child she carried was the one who had been promised for so very long. Mary and Joseph had been good parents. They looked out for Jesus and kept him safe. They fled to Egypt with Jesus soon after his birth because there were already people trying to end his life when he was a tiny baby. There was that one time that they lost him on their way home from Jerusalem, though, so that's a little questionable. They lost track of him when they were on their way home from the Passover feast. But I'm sure that he knew that he was loved and he was grateful for their care. But he found himself headed in a direction on his journey that he would have to take by himself. Maybe he had an inner urge to retreat to his own family, to just live his life alongside Mary and Joseph. It might have been tempting to seek refuge with them, but he was of an age and was facing a reality that he had to walk toward on his own. Maybe he was beginning to count the costs that he would make, or that would be required of him when he made this journey. And again, that just spilled out a little bit on the crowd following him, amazed and drawn drawn in by his teaching and healing and all the miracles. Maybe Jesus was worried. He was wondering how all this was going to be for his parents as it unfolded. Might it be easier just to be mad at them and for them to be mad at him? Maybe he knew that in order to fully live into his calling, he had some letting go of his own to do. It's a natural human instinct to count the costs, and Jesus offered some examples of what that looks like. A builder sitting down, planning and figuring out the cost of a building so that she has some idea before beginning the project that she will have enough money and materials to complete it. Otherwise, she will be ridiculed and embarrassed by those around her for doing something so foolish. And a king getting ready to set out for war, sitting down to consider if it actually would be possible for him to defeat the other king and double the number of soldiers that he had. And if the answer was no, he would shift his plans toward figuring out what the peaceful terms would be. Jesus and his followers were moving toward a time when difficult decisions were going to have to be made. And he knew it was important to call a quick timeout, a pause to consider what they were all moving toward and what would be required of them if they continued following Jesus on this journey toward Jerusalem. All of this could have been hyperbole on Jesus' part, or just an idiom, an expression that means more than exactly what the words say on the page. Was Jesus really asking them to love their families less? Maybe. It's also possible that these words that sometimes stop me in my tracks were more nuanced when we read them through the lenses of our 21st century eyes and ears. People in the crowds following Jesus might have had all kinds of reasons for being in that crowd. They might have witnessed Jesus heal someone they knew, a family member or a friend. Some of them might have been in the crowd that day when lunchtime came, and there had been no plans for how to feed such a group. Through Jesus' words and actions, suddenly there was more than enough food for everyone. Some might have thought that it came out of thin air. Some of them might have seen how this man from Nazareth could help them see each other a little more clearly and tend to their needs among themselves. How he could so gently invite people to share what they had packed away for their own family or traveling companions. Some might have been in that house where Jesus was when a group of friends desperate to get their friend who was sick into Jesus' presence for healing. Seeing them disassemble the roof and lower him down because there seemed to be no other way inside through the crowd. Some might have been following Jesus because they were just plain curious. There was sure to be excitement wherever Jesus was on any given day. He was turning everything upside down wherever he went, making the last first, healing on the Sabbath, having meals with questionable people, touching people who were considered unclean. This list could go on and on. There were plenty of reasons that people were in this crowd. Jesus could have been attempting to thin out the crowd a little bit. The number of people increased more and more as they traveled on. Maybe he needed to be surrounded by those who were truly committed to the cause. But how would he actually do that thinning out? If we return to Mary's Magnificat, the song that she sang when she carried Jesus in her womb, could Jesus have been letting people know once more that this journey they were on wasn't just for entertainment? Being a disciple wasn't just a hobby, the stakes were high. Being a disciple was going to require their willingness to continue the work of Jesus even after he was no longer present with them. It was going to require something serious from them. Being a disciple requires something serious from us as well. What Jesus knew was that there could not be divided allegiances among his followers. I don't think that Jesus was saying that familial commitments are bad, but family does require some commitment and attention. Sometimes all of your commitment and attention. It takes work. And Jesus needed people to understand that the road ahead was going to require a lot from them, maybe even their lives. And he wanted to be sure that they knew that what they were getting into. It was going to require them to expand their own ideas of what family even means. They were going to be asked to love people who were really hard to love. He was going to ask them to touch people who were considered untouchable, to sit down and have meals with people whom others did not want to eat with at all, to question all of the cultural expectations, all in the service of embodying the message of God's love for all people and expanding that circle of love and mercy and inclusion beyond anything that they had ever seen or experienced. Debts would be forgiven, prisoners would be set free, people who considered themselves hard workers would be angry and filled with rage at the very idea of others getting free passes when they had worked really hard. Were they ready to face that anger and rage? Did they really want to expand their idea of family that much to include such a wide swath of humanity? It was going to get complicated really quickly for all of them. As our own country has recently unexpectedly offered a jubilee of sorts for so many who have been weighed down financially by the amount of money they owe for student loans that they took out to pay for college or graduate school. And right on cue, the outrage and anger exploded, and social media did not fail to pay homage to the good old US of A brand of outrage, railing against the very idea of such an act of economic mercy and grace. One of the best memes that I saw was of Jesus and the disciples at the feeding of the 5,000. On one side, you see Jesus and the disciples kind of huddling together. It's clear they're trying to figure out what to do. And on the other side, you see some people in the crowd whispering to each other, "You know, I brought my own lunch. I ate it all and I didn't share it. I also took some of that magic food, you know, just in case." I have to admit that having only finished paying off my own student loans in the last few years, I did have a twinge of a feeling of, well, this is unfair. But when I sat down and really did some soul searching, I could acknowledge that this is one of those Jesus-like turning the world upside down things that if I'd been in the crowd following Jesus, he might have turned around and said to me, "All right, Missy, if you want to be my disciple, you have to be okay with these kinds of radical acts of mercy and grace. There will be times when you may not feel or experience the direct benefit of these particular radical acts. Now, I know you just paid back your student loans. That's great, good for you. And there are a lot of people who can't keep their heads above water because the weight of the loans are relentlessly straining their household budgets monthly." And then I think he might turn to me and say, "Missy, you remember your own outrage at a system and your compassion for people caught in it when you sat with students who were trying to figure out at the end of a fall semester how to take out more loans or how to get their grandmother or their aunt to take out a second mortgage for one more semester of school? Do you remember how they had already taken out significant loans for a full semester of remedial math and English courses that, one, they didn't pass, and that, two, for which no real college credit was given, meaning that they would be starting at zero again in the spring, even if they had passed those classes? It's these students you knew and loved. This is helping them." That changed my tune really quickly. There I am again, having to decide if I have what it takes to be a disciple. I've gotten so wrapped up in my own stuff, whether it's family or money or any kind of possession you might name. We all do it. So maybe Jesus is ultimately asking us where our true allegiance lies. To whom and to what are we willing to give our allegiance? At times, Jesus' words might make even the most faithful among us take a step back and consider the question, have I counted the cost? Am I truly, really in? Or am I just half-heartedly living my life? Do I really have what it takes to be a disciple? Am I going to rejoice when others are freed from their debts or whatever prison they may be trapped in? In her book, Untangled, Lisa Demore uses the image of a swimming pool to talk about the dance that adolescents do as they make the transition from childhood toward adulthood. All swimmers, even the really good ones, even Michael Phelps does it. He swims for a while in the pool, all those laps, and then he gets to the end and holds on to the edge of the pool for just a minute to catch his breath, to start again. As adolescents take part in this dance between braving the waters on their own and returning to a parent or trusted adult for support, or to catch their breath after something difficult or challenging or overwhelming happens, they just as powerfully push away again once they've gotten their bearings and can brave the waters once more on their own. What Jesus was offering to the people who were willing to follow him was a steady and reliable tether that would ground them and guide them in the uncertainties and challenges ahead. It would be a tether not to limit them, but to be a place where they would be renewed and restored and would set them free. And keep them returning to the waters, to keep living into the good news story of mercy and grace, where debts are forgiven, where prisoners are set free. So maybe we do need to revise some of the words in our commissioning and blessings to include, are you ready? In fact, Ken just asked Stan that walking up the sidewalk over here, are you ready for this? Not as a means of discouragement, but rather as a way of saying that this community is ready to stand with you and to encourage you, whatever thresholds or boundaries you need to cross in your life. Whatever waters you need to swim in and explore and have a safe place to return to. We will be here. We are with you. You are with us. And the tender mercy of God surrounds it all. Amen.
Amen. For the fruit of all creation, thanks be to God. For good gifts to every nation, thanks be to God. For the plowing, sowing, reaping, silent growth while we are sleeping, future needs in earth's safekeeping, thanks be to God. In the just reward of labor, God's will is done. In the help we give our neighbor, God's will is done. In our worldwide task of caring for the hungry and despairing, in the harvest we are sharing, God's will is done. For the harvest of the Spirit, thanks be to God. For the good we all inherit, thanks be to God. For the wonders that astound us,
think about the pastoral transition and to do the search for our new co-pastor. I'm glad you said yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're going to be having an even bigger party on October 2nd, so make sure you got that on your calendars. That's when Stan's installation service will be. But for this moment, Stan, we joyfully welcome you as Circle of Mercy's co-pastor. And to echo Ken's words, are you ready? Are you ready for this? In just a few moments, you're going to stand behind this table and call us all to a meal that we receive here every week in some form, and it's weird because of COVID. When we gather, we all want to get back to James.
Yes, we do.
It's a place where we call the community to the table here in this circle, and you are one among many who will offer this call to this table from week to week. Some weeks you will stand in this pulpit and offer a welcome or a sermon or a prayer. Standing at this pulpit and offering these things, you are one among many who will do these same things and offer words of comfort, hope, challenge, and wonder. Some weeks you'll sit right here on the floor maybe and tell a story to the children. Telling stories to the children, you are one of many who will engage sharing this good news story with them. One might ask, well, why do we need a pastor, much less two? If all these other people are doing all these things. Take a look at this gathered community. You will learn our stories. We will learn yours. We will hold these stories together. You will walk with us through times of challenge, heartache, and loss, and we will walk with you through these times as well. You will walk with us through times of joy and delight and celebration, and we will walk through those times with you. You and I will shepherd this community alongside each other. We will tend to the life of this community, both as a whole and to individuals. We will create worship and rituals to surround times of fun and fellowship, as well as times of deep grief and sorrow. We will learn and grow together. We will love this community together. We will dream alongside this community as we discern the ways the Spirit is at work among us, as we all do our best to count the costs and to live into what it means to be followers in the way of Jesus. We are with you.
We are with you. We're with you.
And you are with us.
You are with us.
And the tender mercy of God surrounds it all. We are so glad that you said yes.
Thank you, God.
Thanks be to God. Sometimes I'll be your roadie.
I'm very grateful that you said yes.
Yeah.
I was thankful that Rebecca prayed for Mississippi, for Jackson, Mississippi, led us to pray for Jackson, Mississippi. Last weekend, I had the chance to go visit with two really good friends who I worked with and walked alongside as friends for all the years that I lived in Jackson. We hadn't seen each other together in a long time, and I had these 2 weeks off, which is really unusual, transitioning from one job into this calling. And so we said, let's spend some time. We went to Memphis, which was a place where found a place where we could stay together and hang out, reminisce. These had been two friends who had been the best source of good trouble that I had in Mississippi. And I was so looking forward to being with them. I was so glad that I did get a chance. But when I got there, I discovered they were pretty tired. Mississippi can wear you down, as it turns out. One of these friends is a physician. He's an infectious diseases doctor at the University Medical Center in Jackson. He's worn down from the past 2 years, but beyond that, he's worn down. He's the chief of infectious diseases
there. I remember when he got this job, and I remember talking about, what all the things that could be done here at an important place like that, and all that could happen. But the powers and the principalities have a way of wearing it down. That seems to be one of the strategies. And he was worn down. And it gets deeper than just physically tired. It gets to the level of actual faith and actual capacity to show up in the community of faith and believe that all these crazy dreams that we've had together, that reign of God is coming in some way, even if it's been here in some way. It gets really deep and hard even to believe. The other friend is an attorney. He's a civil rights attorney. And I remember when he got his job, he's now at the law school in Oxford. He gets paid by the state of Mississippi to sue the state of Mississippi. We thought this was going to be a really fun job. all the things that could happen for the prison system and for immigrants in the state of Mississippi, he's worn down. And I was just struck by the time that it's been and the sense that you really can get beaten down. And the powers that are out there are for real. And the fatigue is for real. And the sense that it gets even hard to believe what we say we believe. And to come into this place and to worship and to believe that we're not alone as we gather around this table, that gets hard. So I remember when they each got their new jobs, and here I am being invited to work alongside Missy and you in this new job. And I have to confess, I'm really excited. I think there's some good trouble we can get into. I think we're at a beautiful moment when we've done this transitional time and we're now stepping into some new time that we don't yet have a name for. And I'm very excited about that, but I have to confess, I get prone to getting excited about that stuff. And we should be honest that we could get tired. There could come defeats. There could come failures. And there could come just times when we wonder, are we up against things that are just too big? And has it come inside of us in ways that we begin to recognize? Despair is a real thing. And so we come to this table. It just struck me that there's a place for everybody at this table. There's a place for the people who are hopeful and who really think that now's a time when we can step into something new. And there's a word here for the people who are real and who understand just exactly how hard the ball is that the powers are playing against God's flourishing in this world, and how hard it is even in your own self to say yes to what God's doing in this world. It was the night of his arrest that Jesus shared this meal. And they were singing songs of liberation while Jesus shared this meal. There was hope in the air. And it was the night, within 24 hours, there would be betrayal and division. There would be the worst kind of resistance, the most absurd kind of resistance. And Jesus' death would be real within 24 hours of this meal. And yet, Jesus calls us to the future by saying, whenever you eat this, whenever you drink this, remember me. This is a meal for people who really are up against what the powers are throwing in this world. And it's a meal where Jesus promises to be present with us in the high times and in the low times, in our energy and in our despair. So let us come to this table to receive God's grace and God's gifts. Let our faith be strengthened. Let us recognize one another and recognize God's Spirit here as we gather, as we eat at this table. They were telling stories about the liberation of slaves when Jesus took the bread and giving thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, broken for you. Do this whenever you eat. Do this in remembrance of me." And after that, he took the cup and he said, "This is my blood shed for you." This is a covenant of God's grace, of God's life, shed for you and for all of us, for forgiveness, for hope, for redemption. Whenever you drink this, do this in remembrance of me. Let us pray. O Holy One, for this table and for all the mysteries revealed here, we give you thanks. Let your Spirit take these gifts and unite us with all who hunger for peace, for your justice and righteousness. Help us love as Christ loved. Knowing our weakness, let us stand with all who stumble. Sharing in our suffering, let us remember all who suffer. Held in your love, may we embrace all whom the world denies. Rejoicing in forgiveness, may we be people with mercy. Finally, give us joy to live and hope to serve, recognizing that the times are changing and have been changed already, definitively, by your tenacious love. Amen.
day is done. Go in grace. Let us go into the dark, not afraid and not alone. Let us go by some good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Let us go by some good pleasure safely to arrive at home.
Invited to share a meal over in the fellowship hall. I'm wondering if we can get maybe 5 or 6 volunteers who are willing to help serve food, just so we can minimize the number of hands that are touching food utensils and serving. So could I get like Jessica, Susan, maybe 2 or 3 more? All right, excellent. So I'm going to invite y'all when we finish up here to go on ahead of us, and I'll invite others to kind of linger here and visit for a minute so that they can get things ready to go, and then we'll join them over there. And there's plenty of food. Even if you didn't bring anything, there's plenty. So please stay. Some of it might be magic food. All right. All right, friends. On this day that is filled with joy, as we welcome Stan into our circle as a co-pastor, are any of us ready?
Yeah.
We are. I think we're ready. So go knowing that you are loved beyond measure, and that there is nothing that can separate you from the abiding love of God that surrounds you wherever you go. Go in peace.
Amen.
Yeah.